Right, we're up to Siman Samach Beis, Halacha Aleph. Mishale dictate b'Kriyas Shema. We're talking about the halacha that someone didn't, articulate all the words of Kriyas Shema properly, or he didn't say it loud enough that he can hear it. Says the Mechaber, Sif Aleph. Even though there is a mitzvah when it comes to Kriyas Shema to express, to articulate every single word properly, if you read it without articulating it properly, then you have been yotze your mitzvah. Says in the Mishnah Berurah, you've got an aleph, v'lo diktek. Now we've got to be careful what this means. We're not saying that you've mispronounced the words. If you're saying the words wrong, then for sure you haven't been yotze your mitzvah of Kriyas Shema. Avol inyan lo diktek hu shelo nosen revach ben hadveikim. You haven't sort of given space, you haven't paused properly between each word. Or shelo hitis hazayin shel tiskru, we discussed yesterday. You said tiskaru, that you should get schar. You didn't express the zayin properly. V'chadoyme. V'chanal b'simen samach aleph. That's the Bach Nel Yarbashim, the Chinuch and Much ben Perish Rashi, Shom Masis and Daf Tes Vova and Shom v'Gemara Shom. So in other words, when the Yotza, that so you b'diavad, if you read it sort of quickly, but you didn't pause at the right place, you didn't medactic the words properly, you have been yotze. But if you didn't read the words properly, then you haven't been. Says the Mishnah Berurah Cotton Beis Yotza. However, Mikol Malkum Yizoy Ma'od Lechatchila B'zeh. One should be very careful when it comes to Kriyas Shema to try and express the words properly. V'issa b'shas. Listen to this. Hamadaktik bohen. Someone who's very particular to read Kriyas Shema properly. Shemitzanin sechara. His reward is shemitzanin lo gehenim. That they cool down Gehenim for him. Interesting lashon. Shel midah keneged midah. Why? Shema'acha shehu ma'oireh atzmoi b'zeh. Since he's sort of focusing on this, umenia eschumoi hativi, and he's sort of holding back his natural temperament, ledaktik ba'osius, because a person is generally in a hurry to read it, but he's focusing, he's making a concerted effort to articulate the words properly. Uvischar zeh ha'choim hativi, his natural temperament, shuma'ira mitzanin lo kenegdo choim acher. So midah keneged midah, we also calm down his sort of warm natural temperament, shehu b'gehenim, and therefore the reward for saying the Kriyas Shema properly and articulating each word properly is that mitzanin lo gehenim, they'll cool down Gehenim. Okay, says the Mechaber in Sif Beis. Yochel likreisa b'chol lashon. Very interesting halacha. You can read Shema in any language, right? Spanish, French, English. However, but again, you can't sort of just mess up the words. You've got to be an articulate Spanish talker, or French, or English, or whatever it is. You can't just be confused and make mistakes in the words. Okay, but there's an important Mishnah Berurah. B'chol lashon. Now, v'davka shemevin ba'is lashon. You've got to understand that lashon. So it's no good you and I doing it in Latin or French or Spanish if we don't understand that language. And that is true with other brachas and other tefillahs as well. Tefillah, stam, davening Shemona Esrei, or davening in English, or birchas hamazon, or kiddush, or birchas hamitzvos, haperes, v'halel. To doing all of this in English, but the ever this works. V'chol ze mitzat hadin. This is it. Avol mitzvah ben amuvcha. But ideally, hu dafka b'lashon hakodesh. One should certainly try and do it in lashon hakodesh. Kein kosav habach b'simen kuf tzadi gimel. V'ayim b'sifrei hachronim. The biyomenu nowadays. Af mitzad hadin yesh lizoh shelo likros b'lashon acher. Nowadays, really, one should not do it in any other language. Ki im b'lashon hakodesh. Why? Ki yesh kama v'kama tevos she'en onu yoden eichel atikam heitev. There are many words we can't really translate them. He gives examples. Kagoin tevas v'shinantom. How do we translate that? Because yesh bekam burim, there's different explanations what the word vishinantom means. Echad loshen limud, vishinantom levanecha, teach your children, or learn loshen of limud. Ve'echad loshen chidud, which means to sharpen. Because Chazal, the Gemara says, "Show divrei Torah mechudadin beficha." The divrei Torah should be sharp. She'em yishalcha adam davar al tegam geim b'toimelei. Don't hesitate and mumble and say back, "I think it's here, I think it's there." Be sharp. Know exactly your no Torah. We don't know exactly how to translate them into English or whatever language. Could go in Tevas S, right? How do you translate the word S? S levavecha or whatever it is. It's levavcha. V'tevas l'toitofos. Yeah, what does that mean? How do you translate that? So therefore, doing it in another language is problematic. However, when we say Shema in Lashon HaKodesh, v'chein b'tfilah b'rachas hamazon v'kiddush shai brachas, afilim einam mevin ha'lashon yotza. Even if you don't understand the lashon yotza, it's untenable that a Jew doesn't know the pshat in the first pasuk of Kriya Shema, where the kavana, knowing what you're saying, is ma'akev. Okay, good. Halacha gimel. How loud do you have to say Shema? These are really important halachas. How loud do you have to say Shema? So it's got to be loud enough that you yourself can hear yourself talk, right? Don't do it so loud that your neighbor can hear you as well, because that will disturb him. But it's got to be enough that you can hear what you're saying. If you didn't do it that loudly, then you have been yotzer. So long as your lips are moving, that you actually articulate it. So we'll see the gedarim in a second. Sifkot and Dalet, the Mishnah Berurah, Tzorech, Midrabanan. V'das harai v'huv b'chidush Rashba, hu midraisa lechatchila. This requirement of lahashmiya la'ozne mashemoyetz b'fiv, according to the Rashba, that is actually deraisa. Lahashmiya la'oznov b'Kriya Shema, v'vadim b'birchoseh, and that's not only in Kriya Shema, but also in the brachas of Kriya Shema. U'bevad avalim hira b'liba yotze. If you just merely thought it, yeah, we sometimes do that. We sometimes scan the siddur, and we're not actually saying anything. Even our lips are hardly moving. If you just mahara beliba lo yotz, it's a Chaim on here love kadibra domi. Here, just thinking it is not considered dibur. V'ayim behalacha. Now, the two important footnotes in the dirshu. Number 4. First of all, even the Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam Voed. What about that? We know you do that in an undertone, right? A bit quietly. Sha'adinhu la'omre belachash. We say it quietly. Kasav ha'kaf ha'chaim shemekol makom tzorech la'ashmiya la'ozna v'leshelo yomron b'kol k'shah Kriya Shema. You do it just a notch lower than Kriya Shema. So Shema, you've got to hear what you're saying quietly, but Baruch Shem just a little lower. But it's still it's got to be audible, in a slightly lower way. That's number 1. Number 2, footnote number 5. What if you actually say it? Yeah, but you actually not say. You can't hear yourself, but your lips are moving, and there's no voice coming out. So he says over here, you're reading it. However, ein kol yotze mipiv, no sound is coming out. You're sort of mouthing the words. That's okay. That's Reb Chaim Vital. Which means you cut the words, you articulate the words. Your mouth is moving. Doesn't actually have to be a noise. So the gedarim are quite subtle, right? But either way, one should try to say Kriya Shema in loud enough voice that you can hear it, even if you're articulating, you're cutting the words by moving your mouth, but you can't actually hear anything. Then says of Shlomo Zalman, just air is coming out. That would be sufficient. Okay, Dalet. Im machmas choili oines acher kora Kriya Shema belibo yotza. A person is unwell, or there's some other onus, and you're just literally doing it in your heart, in your mind. You're not saying anything. You're just thinking it almost. Then yotza, in that situation of onus. Says the Ramah, v'af lechatchila yasakein, and even lechatchila, a person who's unwell or in that onus, lechatchila should do that. If he's in a place where it's not clean, and he can't, he's got no choice, there's no way he can do anything about it, he should think it. But as long as the place is not totally dirty, to also because you can't think of divrei Torah in such a situation. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Zayin, Yotza. Hi Yotza, again we need to qualify it. Lo legamrei kama doesn't mean you fulfill the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. Do kaimon here lav kedibra domi. That goes against everything we've just said. So you haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of Kriya Shema if you merely think Kriya Shema. Ela rotz loima tal kol ponim b'shor she'eni yochel ledaber yahar her Kriya Shema b'liboy. when you can't, in a situation, it's an onus, you can't speak for whatever reason, so then at least be mahara b'krishma b'liboy. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu yikbalo schar v'zeh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give you some sort of schar for that. Avol be'etzem ein yoytze b'zeh. Be'etzem, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah of krishma, and therefore al ken k'shistalek ha'onus, when the onus has passed, im adayin le'ova zman krishma mechuyev lachzav l'kreisei. Then you've got to go back and do it again. Yeah, haskamas reb achreinim. So imagine a guy's got a terrible migraine. So he's lying in bed, he can't speak, it's a throbbing headache. So he's lying there, and the best he can do is think Kriya Shema, great, he'll get schar for that. If the thing passes and it's before the Sosman Kriya Shema, then say it again properly. A guy is terribly thirsty in the middle of the night, and he can't, he's lying in bed and he can't, for whatever reason, get out and wash his hands. You can think the bracha. Interesting. You can think the bracha and then have your drink. He argues and says, "What are you talking about? Just get out of bed and wash your hands. What are you talking about?" He's not the same as a chole or someone who's honest. Even if there's no water or it's very, very cold, you can wipe your hands on the wall, which minimally has some effect. That helps you even if you touch places which are normally covered. So he argues. So in other words, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're terribly thirsty, you should really get out of bed, wash until it's a then make the bracha properly, have your drink of water. If there is an onus that you're just unable to for whatever reason, then minimally to wipe your hands on the bedside table or whatever it may be, and then to think the bracha and then to drink, then b'diavad that would be okay. That's the machlikas. Okay, so sif cotton test. So long as it's not a totally mokum matunuf, because says Mishabur v'im hamokum ha'hu matunuf legamre. If it's totally matunuf, lo yaharher. Nusach Kriya Shema bracha. You shouldn't think the nusach of Kriya Shema or the bracha. Rak yachshav b'liba shemechuyev. Listen to this. You should think, I am mechuyev to say Kriya Shema. Ve'en yochel lekayim. I can't fulfill the mitzvah because this is a mokum matunuf. V'yitztayal then you should feel distressed because of it. V'Hashem yireh lelevov, and Hashem sees that distress. Litin leschar machshava, and He'll give you the schar for your thoughts, your desire. Kivin she'onas. What can you do? A person is drinking in a beis hamerchatz and therefore he needs to make a bracha. We're talking in a place where people are undressed. Also, afilu here or there, you can't even think it. And therefore you're not honest in this shtir. Just don't drink. Just drink outside. Says this in the Mechaben Sifhei. The Shliach Tzibur should raise his voice a little bit when he says the first pasuk of Shema. And that way that will arouse the Tzibur to be mamlich Shem Shemaim together.